I am the sole daughter of the Marquis of Jingxi. 3 years after marrying the top scholar Kevin, he rose through the ranks relying on my father's influence. I managed everything, both inside and outside our home, and even used my dowry to smooth his path. The Zhu family quickly became one of the capital's newly prominent families. Everyone said I had made the right bet by marrying down. I felt a warmth in my heart, believing that while priceless treasures are easy to find, a devoted lover is rare. Until my father passed away, and the marquisate fell into decline. Kevin's supposedly deceased first wife suddenly reappeared, alive and well. With a young son in tow, he said, "Aurelia, although your birth is nobler, Rosalie is, after all, my first wife. According to the law, she will be the senior wife and you the junior. It would be a fine story for the two of you to serve me together." Only then did I realize that everything had been a part of Kevin's scheme. He had deceived me into believing his first wife was dead, all so he could marry me and devour the inheritance of the Jingxi marquisate. I laughed in fury. From the sole daughter of a marquis to the matriarch of the Zhu family. What kind of monsters hadn't I seen? This shameless family of 3. Did they dare to challenge me? My father's death coincided with Kevin's official duties away from the capital. He had been sent south by the emperor, and even by express horse, it would take him several days to return. I had to go back to the marquisate alone for the morning. Grief and exhaustion left me sleepless for 2 whole days. It wasn't until the 3rd day, after helping my mother manage everything, that I dragged my weary body back to the Zhu residence. As soon as I arrived, I saw my husband sitting at a round table with a woman and a young boy, eating. The woman had a gentle smile on her face, and she and my husband frequently placed food on each other's plates, laughing and talking. The child called out "Daddy," and the family of 3 looked picture perfect. The scene was a bolt from the blue. For a moment, I couldn't believe my eyes. I swayed and bumped into the doorframe, drawing their attention. Upon seeing me, the woman immediately stood up and pulled the child into her arms. Mother and son hid behind Kevin, watching me warily. A flicker of guilt crossed Kevin's face as he explained, "Aurelia, this is Rosalie, my first wife. I told you about her before we married." I looked at Kevin's face, then at the mother and son behind him. My heart filled with scorn. The woman behind him was his first wife. Then, what was I? Me father's health had always been poor, and I was his only child. The Jingxi marquisate had once been glorious. But by my generation, it had fallen into decline. When I reached marriageable age, my parents worried endlessly. No respectable noble family would want to marry the daughter of an empty marquisate, but they were afraid of wronging me by marrying me to someone of too low a station. At this impasse, the top scholar, Kevin, came to ask for my hand. He was the one the emperor himself had personally chosen as the best in the palace examination. He was handsome and talented, full of youthful vigor. When we first met, he was humble and gentle, and I had an excellent impression of him. More importantly, he was sincere. Kevin confessed to my father that before coming to the capital, he had a wife from a humble background. She had slipped and fallen into a river while doing laundry, and was swept away, presumed dead. The villagers could all attest to this. My father had his own considerations. The top scholar was immensely talented, appointed to a 5th-rank position right after entering officialdom. With the right support, his future was limitless. Crucially, his family background was not as prominent as ours, and his household was simple. I would not be mistreated if I married him. In every way, Kevin seemed a perfect match. So, my father sent people to Kevin's hometown to investigate, and everything was as he had said. After much consideration, my father agreed to the marriage. I brought a mountain of dowry with me to the Zhu family. After we married, I managed the household impeccably, and used my dowry to navigate social and political circles for him. My father also promoted him in court. In just 2 years, he was promoted several times, reaching the 3rd rank and holding real power. Everyone said I had made the right bet and that my hard work had finally paid off. But no one expected that the moment my father died, Kevin would turn on me, bringing back his supposedly dead wife and son. He was a truly ungrateful wolf now. Looking at his frowning face, I felt nothing but disgust. Seeing my silence, Kevin, perhaps thinking I was in denial or being difficult, continued. Rosalie fell into the river. Everyone thought she was dead. Your father's investigation confirmed it. I only found out she was alive when I went back this time, and that she had given birth to our son. Aurelia, I know you are unhappy, but this is an indisputable fact. Though your birth is noble and you were properly married, Rosalie is, after all, my first wife. By law, she is the senior, and you are the junior. It would be a fine story for the two of you to serve me together. I almost laughed out loud. He had used the Jingxi marquisate to rise, and now that I had lost my value, he wanted to demote me from wife to concubine. She the senior, I the junior, serving one husband together. I had never met such a shameless, despicable person. I sneered. First wife, wasn't your first wife dead before you came to the capital? Are you out of your mind, my lord, to risk being accused of deceiving the emperor? For the sake of caution, my father and Kevin had reported this matter to the emperor. If I were to kneel before the emperor now, Kevin would be in serious trouble. At my words, his face changed, a visible tension in his features. Before he could speak, Rosalie pulled the child to her knees, and they both knelt before me. I know that without you, the Zhu family would not be where it is today. I dare not place myself above you. It is just that Owen is the master's eldest son, and he deserves a proper status. My husband, as long as Owen has a legitimate place, I am willing to be a mere maid by your side, without any complaint. Rosalie spoke with such sincerity, her eyes red. She and the boy even kowtowed twice. I watched her act. My eyes narrowed. Kevin's brow was furrowed so tightly he could have crushed a fly. He said with some annoyance, Rosalie, get up! Since when does the Zhu family have to bow to a woman's whims? This was a complete accident. Who could have foreseen it? Even if the emperor knew, he wouldn't blindly convict us of deceiving him. As for you, Aurelia, even if we went to court, the verdict would still be that Rosalie is the senior, and you are the junior. You have enjoyed a life of comfort with me since you married. Rosalie has suffered so much. Can't you just yield to her? How can your heart be so cruel? I knew that for the past 2 years, many had said he rose to power because of me and the Jingxi marquisate. I had even worried about his feelings and tried to comfort him in roundabout ways, but he had seen through it, faced it with honesty and sincerity, saying we were family and that there was nothing to be ashamed of. Now, from his tone, it was clear that all of that was just an act. He cared a great deal, but because of my father's power, he had to suppress his feelings. Now that my father was gone, why should he pretend anymore? I laughed in fury and said with deliberate cruelty, enjoying comfort, don't make me laugh. I am the sole daughter of a marquis, a lady of noble birth. Marrying you was marrying down. I have worked tirelessly to manage this household. It is you who have spent my dowry and relied on my father's power. You are the one who has been enjoying comfort. I had never thought that way before. I believed that since we were married, we were one. He worked hard in the court, and I would manage the home for him. But now that he had brought back his fake dead wife and son to trample on me, I had to make him even more uncomfortable. My words hit a nerve. He was so angry his eyes turned red. He clenched his fists, his chest heaving. He slammed his hand on the table. The plates and chopsticks jumped, and wine spilled, making a mess. He then pointed at my nose. You, woman, how dare you? He was seething, gritting his teeth. Rosalie, with red-rimmed eyes, tried to interject, but I gave her no chance. With a sweep of my sleeve, the dishes on the table crashed to the floor, splashing at Kevin's feet and splattering all over Rosalie. The child burst into tears. I ignored it, stood up straight, and looked Kevin in the eye, my voice calm. Kevin, even if my father is dead, the Jingxi marquisate has been a noble house for 100 years. It is not for a third-rank official who has barely found his footing in the capital to insult. You want a marquise's daughter to be your concubine. Are you worthy? Kevin stood there, a fine sheen of sweat on his forehead. He pressed his lips together, his once certain gaze now hesitant. Just then, an annoying voice came from the side. Rosalie, defending him, said, "Madam, how can you speak to your husband like that?" I sneered and glanced at the floor. She knelt there, feigning fear, biting her lip as if she had summoned all her courage to speak for him. But the glint of excitement in her eyes couldn't be hidden. If I were her on the cusp of a life of riches, I would also feign retreat to advance, putting on a good show. But unfortunately for her, she shouldn't have colluded with Kevin, shouldn't have used my family as a stepping stone. I simply lifted my chin. My personal maid, who had been waiting by my side, stepped forward and slapped her hard twice. "You slut! Where did you crawl out from? How dare you comment on the mistress's words and actions?" My maid scolded. Rosalie fell to the ground, clutching her face, not daring to make a sound. Kevin looked at me, furious but speechless. I took my maid's hand and walked towards the main courtyard, not sparing the two of them another glance. Back in my own courtyard, I dismissed the servants. The strength I had been holding on to finally left me. The grief of losing my father, the exhaustion of the past few days, and my husband's betrayal, the combination of emotions gave me a splitting headache. I was not made of stone. The feelings of the past 2 years were real. My heart felt heavy, as if stuffed with cotton, making it hard to breathe. But I knew that Kevin had been deceiving me from the start. I understood that he was not the right man for me. Indecision would only lead to more suffering. Even if the pain was like having my heart ripped out, I had to cut away this rotten flesh before it became a festering wound, a source of endless torment. After bathing and forcing down a few mouthfuls of porridge, it was already evening. An overwhelming weariness washed over me. Just as I was about to sleep, Kevin came to my courtyard. He was carrying a box of my favorite lotus pastries and a bottle of cooling mint balm. He placed them on the small table and sat cautiously on the edge of the bed. His voice was no longer harsh and demanding as it had been during the day, but had returned to its former gentle and affectionate tone. "Aurelia, my love, I was inconsiderate. I was away, and you had to bear everything alone. You've worked so hard. I brought your favorite pastries. You must have a headache after such a long day. Shall I massage your temples?" I kept my eyes closed, ignoring him. In the past, whenever I was angry, this was his go-to method: buy my favorite pastries and whisper sweet nothings. He would then apply the cooling balm with his own hands and massage my temples to ease my headache. I used to fall for it every time, thinking he was the gentlest man in the world. But now, just hearing his voice filled me with disgust. The thought of what he had done made it all the more ironic. Seeing my silence, he took my hand and continued, "I am back now. You can tell me all your grievances. Don't keep them bottled up. Let's not fight like this anymore, okay?" He caressed my hand, his voice persuasive as always. I was so annoyed that I pulled my hand away and asked coldly, "What do you really want to say?" Kevin, perhaps not expecting me to be so resistant, paused, his expression a little unnatural. "I handled the matter with Rosalie poorly. I was muddle-headed and didn't think clearly. But she is Owen's mother, and she was my wife before you. It wouldn't be right to make her a concubine. How about we make her an equal wife? The management of the household will still be yours. We'll just give her the title. What do you think?" I sat up, finding his proposal utterly laughable. So, the hard approach didn't work. Now he was trying the soft one. Kevin and Rosalie had planned this well. She would get to enjoy a life of luxury without any of the work, while they continued to live off my dowry. I would be the one to support their entire family, to work like an ox for them. Did they really think I was a fool? I immediately raised my voice. "Simone, throw him out." The sight of his face made me sick. My sudden outburst startled him, and he jumped up from the bed. Footsteps sounded from outside, and soon, several burly maids entered. Kevin said frantically, "Aurelia, listen to me." But before he could finish, he was being dragged out. These maids were my trusted servants, either used to hard labor or with some martial arts training. Kevin, a scholar with no physical strength, was no match for them. As he was being thrown out, he finally lost his composure and roared, "Aurelia, Rosalie and I have already compromised. What more do you want? By law, you are in the wrong. Why must you be so aggressive? This is what I hate most about you." The voices outside faded. I simply ordered that if any other riffraff showed up, they were to be thrown out as well. What did I want? Of course, I wanted those who had wronged and schemed against me to pay 1,000 times over, and to return everything that did not belong to them. The next day, I prepared to go to the capital's yamen to file a complaint against Kevin. I wanted a divorce. Not only that, I wanted back everything he had used and spent of mine. He had dared to show his true colors the moment my father died because he was sure I wouldn't dare to make a scene. Even if I was wronged, as a lone woman with no support, and with the gossip outside, I would have to swallow my pride and endure it. Unfortunately for him, he didn't know me. I would rather be a shattered jade than an intact tile. My father's health had been poor, and I was his only child. As a child, I had seen plenty of people with ill intentions, coveting the Jingxi marquisate. After I married, the social dealings and maneuvering among the noble ladies were no less intense than the intrigues of the court. What kind of monsters hadn't I seen? I was never one to swallow insults and let others push me around. But just as I was leaving my courtyard, I ran into Rosalie. She and Owen knelt on the stone path, blocking my way. She put on a show of magnanimity. "Madam, please calm down. Don't let my affairs cause a rift between you and the master. If you are still angry, I am willing to disappear from your sight forever. I only ask that you register Owen under your name so that the child may have a home and the company of his parents." She then pushed the kneeling boy forward. "Owen, hurry and thank the madam. Call her mother." The boy's face was scrunched up as if he wanted to cry but didn't dare. He looked at me timidly, but in his bean-like eyes, there was a hint of resentment. Rosalie's retreat to advanced tactic was a beautiful dream, not to mention whether Kevin would let her leave. If the child was registered under my name, he would be the legitimate eldest son, giving him a huge advantage in inheriting the family estate. And this child was old enough to remember things. He was deeply attached to his mother. He would never warm up to me and would only resent me more. Did I look that easy to manipulate? But I didn't want to waste my time on her. I sneered. "Rosalie, you are not dead yet. Why are you in such a hurry to have your son call someone else? Mother? My children will be of noble birth, not some crude country boy. While I am in a good mood, go back where you came from. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." With that, I prepared to leave. But Rosalie sat on the ground, weeping, and grabbed my leg. "Madam, please have pity. I don't want my husband to be torn, but I can't bear to part with Owen. Please grant my motherly wish." My maid shouted at her to let go and tried to pull her away, but Rosalie held on with all her might. My leg was in pain. I yanked my dress free from her grasp. Rosalie fell to the ground. Owen, who had been standing by, burst into tears and lunged at me, trying to hit me. "Don't bully my mom, you bad woman. I'll kill you." Just then, Kevin rushed over. He had just returned from court and was still in his official robes. Seeing the scene, he quickly helped Rosalie up and shielded Owen behind him. Rosalie clutched his robes, tears in her eyes. "Husband, it is not the madam's fault. I was just careless." Kevin patted her hand reassuringly and looked at me as if I were a criminal. "Aurelia, I know you are angry. You can take it out on me, but don't take it out on them." I looked at Rosalie coldly, straightened my clothes, and slowly walked towards them. When I didn't answer him, Kevin stared at me and frowned. "What are you doing?" What was I doing? Of course, I was going to teach her a lesson. I slapped Rosalie hard across the face. Her head snapped to the side, and half her face instantly swelled up. Only then did I turn to Kevin and sneer. "See, that was me hitting her." Kevin's face turned black. He glared at me, gritting his teeth. Finally, a look of disgust filled his eyes. "Aurelia, you are too domineering. Even the deepest affection would be worn away by you. Besides me, what other man could tolerate a personality like yours? Who wouldn't want someone warm and understanding to come home to after a long day?" But I am exhausted every day. And I still have to please you. You get upset at the slightest thing. I am a person, not your dog. For a moment, I was stunned. So, what I had thought was our sweet affection was, in his eyes, so unbearable. I was domineering. If I weren't, the Jingxi marquisate would have been devoured. If I hadn't been strong, I would have drowned in the gossip of the capital's noblewoman. That day, to build a connection with the old duchess for Kevin's sake, I had endured countless slights and humiliations. I had waited for him to come home, just to hear a few comforting words. He would often forget the things I had told him, but I thought he was just busy. An occasional playful complaint from me was, in his eyes, me treating him like a dog. How sad, how laughable. I had been blind. I had idealized our relationship from the very beginning. This man had been rotten to the core. Faced with his hysteria, I suddenly felt calm. I took the handkerchief from my maid, wiped my hands, and threw it disdainfully at their feet. In that case, I will grant your wish. Let us divorce. From now on, we go our separate ways. With that, I turned and walked away. As I passed them, Kevin stood there, stunned, a hint of panic in his eyes. Rosalie slyly lowered her gaze, but she couldn't hide the glint of triumph. I had only taken a few steps when I heard Kevin's voice from behind. Aurelia, do you have to make such a scene? Let's both take a step back. You will be the senior wife, Rosalie the junior. The child will be registered under your name. Is that still not enough? As he spoke, Rosalie, standing beside him, grew anxious and called out, "Husband." I stopped but didn't turn back. Disgusting. Suddenly, Kevin lost his temper and roared. Do you have to make this public and humiliate me? How will I face my colleagues at court? How will I face the public's judgment? Why are you so selfish? I almost laughed out loud, so he knew this was a disgraceful, shameful affair. But he was the one who had created it. If you are going to do it, why be afraid of people knowing? And to turn it around and call me selfish was the height of absurdity. I didn't want to answer him. Another word with him felt dirty. I started walking again, but Kevin's voice turned sinister. Since you refuse the easy way, you'll have to take the hard way. Men, stop the mistress. A group of servants swarmed in, surrounding me and blocking my path. I was trapped. Kevin walked up to me, frowning. I was trying to be reasonable, for the sake of our marriage. Since you refuse my kindness, don't blame me for not remembering our past affection. The mistress is ill. Please escort her back to her courtyard to recuperate. Until she is well, she need not come out. I looked around, my gaze finally settling on his face. I narrowed my eyes. Are you trying to put me under house arrest? Kevin sneered. And what if I am? The servants were about to advance. My maid stood in front of me, but her slender frame was no match for them. I pulled a dagger from my sleeve and held it in front of me, shouting, "Who dares? All of you, get back!" The servants hesitated, then retreated. I stared at Kevin, my heart covered in frost. Kevin, if I die, I am taking a few of you with me. The Marquis of Jingxi has just died. A woman is brought into the zoo residence, and I, the Marquise's daughter and the wife of a rising official, die mysteriously. Do you think the Emperor won't be suspicious? You've worked so hard to climb to this position. You wouldn't want to lose it all, would you? Kevin was so calculating and patient for the sake of power and wealth. He would not risk his career. Sure enough. He waved his hand, and the servants backed away. I held the dagger and slowly broke through the encirclement. Kevin could only clench his fists, veins popping on his forehead, helpless to stop me in the end. I left the zoo residence unscathed. I first returned to the Jingxi Marquisate. From Kevin's actions, and considering the rarity of a woman initiating a divorce, it was clear he was confident my path would not be smooth. I needed to prepare. My mother, seeing me, took my hand, her heart aching. Did they wrong you? Even when I had confronted Kevin, I hadn't shed a single tear. But now, looking at my mother's red-rimmed eyes and the white in her hair, hearing her concern, my nose tingled. I held back my tears and told her everything. My mother immediately cursed Kevin as a heartless wolf, her cough flaring up in her anger. She wanted to go to the palace and seek justice from the emperor. The ancestors of the Jingxi marquisate were all loyal subjects. Your father also served the country diligently. The emperor will not stand by and do nothing, she said. I shook my head. People move on. My father was dead. That little bit of favor had to be saved for a critical moment, not wasted on this. Mother, I have a plan. Don't worry, no matter what, I will not be taken advantage of. In the end, she chose to trust me. The next day before dawn, I went to wait outside the Grand Princess's residence. She was the emperor's aunt. In her youth, her husband had betrayed their vows and secretly kept a mistress. The Grand Princess had decisively chosen to divorce him, a first in many years. The thought of divorcing him had come to me because I had thought of her. I wanted to ask for her help. If that failed, I would have to petition the emperor. But then, the Jingxi marquisate would lose its final pillar of support. I waited for 2 full hours before I was granted an audience. Her hair was now silver, but her every move exuded an even greater royal authority. After hearing my purpose, she chuckled softly and told me to lift my head. She stared into my eyes, a faint smile on her lips. You know I divorced my husband, but do you know it was because he tried to have me killed? I went through great lengths to divorce him so that even in death, he would have no connection to me. Though I am of noble birth. Do you know how much I was gossiped about? Do you know any of this? Her eyes were sharp, fixed on me. Yesterday, I had gripped the dagger so tightly I had cut my palm. I bowed deeply and held out my hand. Your Highness, I know all of this. But when you have reached a dead end, you must turn back. You cannot risk your life. That would be the greatest regret. The Grand Princess's gaze flickered to the cut on my palm, then to a point in the distance, as if lost in a memory. After a long while, her voice came from above. Go and do what you must. I will bear any consequences for you. But remember this. If you choose to take this step, you can never turn back. Her tone suddenly became sharp. I was overjoyed and kowtowed in gratitude. As her attendant was escorting me out, I learned that a woman had once sought the Grand Princess's help. Having suffered herself, the Grand Princess, as a woman, wanted to help. But the woman had changed her mind and reconciled with her abusive husband, forgetting the bruises on her body and the tears she had shed while begging for help. I was stunned. I had never known this story. I suppose that during her silence she had been hesitating. But in the end, she had chosen to trust and help me. I was so moved, I was speechless. After composing myself, I curtsied to the attendant before leaving. Ma'am, Aurelia will not betray the Grand Princess's trust. Thank you, Your Highness, for still believing in me and helping me. Just as I returned to the marquisate, I saw the Zhu family's carriage. Kevin was just getting out. Seeing me, he put on a fake smile. Aurelia, I've come to take you home. Don't be angry with me anymore. It was my fault yesterday. I know I was wrong. He lowered his eyes, feigning submission. The sight of his hypocrisy made me sick. Without giving him another glance, I walked towards the gate. But Kevin stepped forward and tried to grab me, his tone threatening. Woman, you are the mistress of the Zhu family. The wife follows the husband. Do you really want a divorce? It is a foolish dream. What woman in this world would dare to divorce her husband? If you insist on this path, don't blame me for not remembering our marital affection and serving you with a letter of divorce. I stopped on the steps, now a head taller than him, and looked down at him. Someone throw this trespassing ruffian out before he dirties the grounds of my Jingxi marquisate. A group of well-built servants in neat uniforms streamed out from behind me, brandishing large sticks, and drove him away. I sneered. On my own territory. How could I let an outsider bully me? Kevin was furious and finally couldn't hold back. Aurelia, we'll see. No woman has ever divorced her husband. You are so jealous and tyrannical. The day you return to the Zhu family, I will teach you a lesson and show you who is in charge. You were born a Zhu, and you will die a Zhu. His words only strengthened my resolve. The guard's blows grew heavier. Kevin was beaten until he was cowering, and he finally scrambled back into his carriage, his face bruised and swollen. I had a maid go to the yamen and report him. Tomorrow, I would face him in court, and I would finally be free of the identity of a zoo wife. No longer would I have any connection to him. Not long after I entered the manor, Rosalie came with Owen and cried at the gate. She said she would yield her position to me and begged me not to be at odds with Kevin. She pleaded for me to return, promising to serve me, so that we could all live in harmony. I had the authorities called, fearing arrest. She left reluctantly. But in just half a day, the entire capital knew. Almost everyone was cursing me, calling me a heretic, jealous, and overbearing. Some even came to my gate and threw rotten eggs and vegetables, saying I had cursed my father to death and that I was a disgrace to my family. I paid them no mind, just felt a sense of sorrow. The world was too harsh on women. Why could a man divorce his wife, but a woman could not divorce her husband? I didn't even have the option of initiating it. But a few women did speak up for me, supporting my decision. The next day, when I arrived at the yamen, a crowd had already gathered. This was a first, and everyone wanted to see what would happen. When they saw me, a path opened up. Many were whispering. I ignored them all. Even when I saw Kevin in the courtroom, I was perfectly calm. The magistrate slammed his gavel, his gaze sweeping over Kevin and me. Finally, he said, "Madam Zhu, you have filed a complaint against your husband. What is your intention?" I said directly. "I want a divorce." It had been a rumor, but now, hearing me say it, the courtroom erupted. Even the crowd was shocked. The magistrate frowned. A divorce? There has never been a case of a wife suing her husband for divorce. I said with a firm voice. Then, there is one now. Doesn't everything have to start somewhere? Why can't it start with me? I then recounted everything Kevin had done, presenting the evidence I had prepared. Kevin sneered. Since ancient times, the first to marry has been the senior. Rosalie is my first wife, and she has borne me a son. By law, what is wrong with me bringing her back? I think you are just jealous. Rosalie was willing to be the junior, but you still couldn't tolerate her. What a clever way to twist the truth. I did not yield. My lord, you are mistaken. This is a matter of you deceiving and using the marquisate, and then trying to cast me aside. What does it have to do with who is senior or junior? Can you deny that you rose through the ranks using my dowry and my family's influence? To turn your back on that now? Where is the justice in that? I had hit his sore spot. He was red in the face, furious. Aurelia, you are jealous and sharp-tongued. As a wife, you are not gentle, kind, or frugal. Is this how you should speak to your husband? I snorted and addressed the magistrate directly. My lord, Kevin is a hypocrite, who has deceived the marquisate, and even the emperor. Why can't I divorce such a man? Am I to waste away the rest of my life in his house? The ancestors of the Jingxi marquisate were all loyal subjects. My father also served the country diligently. We cannot be associated with such a person and tarnish the marquisate's name. The magistrate frowned, clearly in a difficult position. What Kevin had done was despicable, and he had to give my family some face. But to grant a divorce initiated by a wife was unprecedented. If he did, wouldn't he be defying the world? As he was struggling, Kevin, perhaps stung by my words, raised his hand to strike me. Aurelia, since no one has taught you your place, I will teach you what it means for the husband to be the master, you and your outlandish ideas. The next second, the Grand Princess's voice came from the entrance. Who dares to cause a disturbance in this court? The Grand Princess's carriage arrived at the courtroom. The magistrate bowed to welcome her. She said, "I have come today only to observe. My lord, you may proceed with your judgment as you see fit." The magistrate returned to his seat. The Grand Princess then said, "As I recall, causing a disturbance in court is punishable by caning." Kevin's face turned pale, but he didn't dare to speak. He was caned and lay on the ground, groaning. I watched him, a sense of satisfaction in my heart. Only then did the Grand Princess say, "To be so insolent in public, I can only imagine what he is like in private. My lord Kevin, are you suggesting that my own divorce was also an outlandish ideas?" To curse a princess is a crime punishable by death. At her words, Kevin's face went white. He stammered, trying to explain. The magistrate's face also changed. He had forgotten about that. After some thought, he wrote out a verdict, granting my divorce from Kevin. After receiving the verdict, I said, "My lord, I have another complaint. I demand that Kevin return my dowry, which he has spent, totaling 86,420 taels of silver. Here is the evidence." Kevin's already pale face went ashen. In the end, with all the evidence, he was ordered to return my dowry within 10 days or face imprisonment. Looking at the two verdicts, the heavy stone in my heart was finally lifted. When I left the yamen, the sun was shining brightly, warming my skin. I happened to meet the Grand Princess waiting outside. I knelt to thank her again. She personally helped me up. "Good child, you have done well." Through this, the Emperor also learned of Kevin's deeds. He was furious, reprimanded him, and stripped him of his power. Kevin's career was ruined, and he had to pay me a large sum of money. It was a double blow. I heard he eventually married Rosalie, but their life was not happy. Without the connection to the Jingxi marquisate and having fallen out of favor with the Emperor, he was eventually demoted. His career in shambles, he came to beg my forgiveness twice. By then, I had joined the Grand Princess's Academy for Ladies in Waiting and was on my way to becoming one of her officials. I had him thrown out. I never wanted anything to do with him again. Later, he was demoted again and again until he was a minor 7th rank official. He grew more and more despondent, frequenting brothels and eventually contracted a venereal disease. And I had entered the palace as a female official, single-handedly supporting the name of the Jingxi marquisate. The sun was shining brightly. My future was limitless.